I'd like to call to order the Charter Township of Oxford Planning Commission regular meeting scheduled for Thursday, May 13th, 2021. If you would, please rise and pay your respects to the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Hunwick, will you please note the roll? Mr. Spiz has an absence.
Noted the roll.
Thank you. Item 4, approval of the agenda.
I make a motion that we approve the agenda dated May 13th, 2021, 7 o'clock tonight at special location Lake Point Community Church.
I'll second the motion.
It's been moved and supported. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, those...
Do you need roll call for that?
No, I don't need roll call for that. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. The agenda passes. Item 5, approval of the minutes.
Make a motion that we approve the Planning Commission regular meeting minutes dated May 4/22/21.
I'll support.
It's been moved and supported. Is there any
These are the minutes.
discussion on the motion?
Approval to the regular planning commission.
Seeing none, those in approval? Those approval?
Oh, aye.
Those opposed? Okay, that motion passes. Let's move to item number 6, public comment on items that are not scheduled for a public hearing or items that are not on the agenda. So these are things that are not on the agenda for tonight. If there's anyone wishing to speak out in the public, you can come to the podium and give us your comment. Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on to commissioners' comments. Mr. Bailey.
None this evening, sir.
Ms. Knopf. Mr. Hunwick.
I have none.
Mr. Berger.
I have none at this time.
Mr. Nold.
I have a brief one. We've been doing some work over the winter on the Squaw Lake DNR access site. We have a new building that's right down the street here. We have a new building on location that's been delivered and installed for the DNR usage to manage that site on the weekends. The curbing has been removed and is being temporarily stored to allow for the grading, and that's supposed to happen momentarily.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on to item number 8, the public hearing. Purpose of this hearing is to receive public comments on the proposed zoning ordinance text amendment to regulate medical marijuana within Oxford Township. We are going to have a presentation by the petitioner, which is the Township of Oxford. And then we'll open up a public hearing to get your public comments. We'll close that public hearing. And then we'll have comments from the Planning Commission and our staff. And then we'll take action. So is the petitioner here? Township of Oxford? Okay. If you would, please come to the podium. Give us a brief summary of what we're trying to accomplish. And I also understand that Hans Rentrup is also here as well.
Yes.
Okay.
Is this on? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear him out in the back?
Can you hear me out? Oh, there you go. Jack Curtis, Supervisor, Oxford Township. We're petitioning for an ordinance to regulate medical marijuana. It came to our attention by several of our surrounding communities that the state of Michigan allows caregivers licensed caregivers to grow up to 72 plants. A lot of the communities around us that are allowing, we have to allow them, but the only one way you can protect the integrity of our systems is by having them placed in a zoning district. What happens is if you put one of these medical marijuana grow operations in a residential area, you degrade the integrity of the electrical grid for your neighbors. Most oftentimes they're running up to 400 amps or 340 according to Pat Payne. There's use of fans and lights, and it is a large problem in communities with the neighbors that live in the homes. So in order to protect the medical marijuana business, we have proposed a ordinance allowing them to be placed under special land use in the zoning of I-1 and I-2. That's the industrial areas. And medical marijuana can be grown there with sufficient electricity and noise abatements and light abatements, so not to disturb commercial and or residential areas. That's what I had. I'm going to let Hans speak.
Good evening, and thank you, Supervisor Curtis. Before you tonight is a zoning ordinance amendment to regulate marijuana, specifically medical marijuana. The ordinance is designed, it does address marijuana in the sense that there are 3 acts under the marijuana law. The first is the Michigan Medical Marijuana Act. Second is the Marijuana Facilities Licensing Act. And the third is the Michigan Regulation and Taxation of Marijuana Act. These 3 acts allow the use of marijuana under certain circumstances and individual techniques. Just as the starting point, so you know, the regulation of marijuana is a tricky item. It is somewhat new. It's an area that continues to be developed in the law over time. And that's one of the reasons we sit here tonight, is because up until about 9 months ago, it was unclear whether the municipalities could actually zone marijuana uses. As I said, there are 3 acts. The first is the Facilities Act, which I'll mention. That allows it was intended to allow, after the Medical Marijuana Act in 2008, the Facilities Act was intended to allow commercial operations of growing marijuana. These are for large profit-making functions. They include growers, processors, safety compliance facilities, provisioning centers, dispensaries, and secure transporters. Those 5 entities, you had to make an ordinance to opt into that act. The township did not do that. Most municipalities did not do that, so that is not an issue before you. However, the ordinance before you tonight reiterates the fact that you're not part of that. The second one I want to address is the Recreational Act. This is the most recent one that was passed in 2018, I believe it was. This is the act that allows recreational use of marijuana. It limits the growth of up to 12 plants per household or per residence or per building. So it's not that if you have 2 people who are under the act or that want to grow their own recreational marijuana, they can't have 24 plants. They can only have a maximum of 12 at that facility. This act also allows certain dispensaries and commercial operations as well, but in order to avail yourself, you have to not have an ordinance that prohibits it. Oxford Township adopted an ordinance to prohibit that, so that issue is really not before you again, although it is stated in this amendment to clarify that you are not allowing the recreational commercial aspects. You have to allow the recreational, just private aspects, but not the commercial aspects. Which brings me to the final act, the Michigan Medical Marijuana Act, which is before you tonight. Now, this act was passed in 2008. It has undergone development over time. As recently, it started with a case called Turbeek versus City of Wyoming. This is where many communities, when it first came out, took the position that we're going to prohibit it completely because it's illegal under federal law. The Michigan Supreme Court came out in that decision and said, no, you can't completely prohibit it. The Michigan Act says it's not a violation of state law. It doesn't say that you can regulate it using federal law, and the different jurisdictions competed. Interesting, in the Turbeek case, there was a little footnote that says, we do not comment, this is the Michigan Supreme Court, we do not comment on the ability to regulate and zone marijuana, medical marijuana. That led to a case called York Township versus Miller. York Township versus Miller was a case where the property owner tried to grow a large sum of marijuana in a private residence, and the township complained and filed suit, and it started going through it didn't comply with their zoning regulations. It started to go through it. I actually was involved in a brief amicus brief part of that. Later came the DeRuyter versus Byron Township. For some reason, the Supreme Court liked their case better. So they took that case up, and that officially took on the Turbeek footnote and said, yep, you municipalities can zone marijuana with reason. That decision came down in April of 2020. Since that time, various communities have gone around to address the zoning of medical marijuana. One of the problems that you see a lot of times is houses and communities that turn into and become maybe were rentals or something in the past, turn and become grow houses alone. I've seen it personally in a couple of the communities I represent where they're just a grow house, and they stink, and they look funny, and they attract crime, and they do all sorts of stuff. So the thought process, part of this ordinance, is to allow a safe place for medical marijuana to be grown, consistent with the act, consistent with the state law, and move on from there. So the fundamentals of this ordinance provide that if you grow more than 12 plants, you have to be inside a building, you have to be in the industrial I1 or I2 zoning districts. If you grow just 12 plants for individual use, you can do that, still do that in your home technically under the law. It's presumed in the Recreational Act as well as the Medical Marijuana Act, okay? In the Medical Marijuana Act, you have to do what they call a registered qualifying patient. It does require special land use. The idea behind the special land use is to keep an eye and make sure we're doing things properly. The restrictions on there are quite significant. They're not unreasonable, in my opinion, although, like I said, this is an area of law that continues to be developed. It requires things such as, making sure there's no smell coming from the growing operations. I can tell you that there are places where they have large-scale growing operations where you can smell it from the road as you drive by. And again, like I said, the ordinance also restates that you're not part of the Facilities Licensing Act and you're not allowing dispensaries or other commercial operations under the Recreational Act. So that's what we have before you tonight. I'm open to any questions that you may have.
Hans, can you identify yourself again and your relationship to the township?
Sure. My name is Hans Rentrop. I'm an attorney with Atkinson, Need, Allen & Rentrop. I've done some work in the township in the past as far as tax tribunal appeals and those natures. We do not represent Oxford Township, but I do represent a number of other municipalities. And through Gary Rentrop, I was referred to him as some knowledge about marijuana and the regulation of it, so that's why I'm before you tonight. And Mr. Curtis asked me to go for that.
Okay, very good. Thank you. And there may be some questions that come up a little bit further on in this proceeding.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to move to item number 2. I seek for a motion to open the public hearing.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to open the public hearing at whatever timetable it is, 7:15 p.m.
I'll support.
It's been moved and supported. Any discussion? Seeing none, those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, the public hearing is now open. If there's anyone out in the public wishing to make a comment on this subject, you're welcome to come up to the lectern, state your name, state your address. You will have 3 minutes to make your comment, and then you'll be stopped politely. You may ask a question. We won't actually be asking or answering any questions. We are just taking public comment at this time. If you stick around for the rest of the proceedings, your questions may be answered through discussion. So, is there anyone out in the public wishing to speak?
I'm Leslie Kwasniewski, 3700 Estate Drive in Oxford. And I just had a question or concern. I know this is medical marijuana, and I know that they're doing it in the industrial now, it sounds like. But what about my neighbor who has a grow house that I have to smell? That's my concern. And how are they regulating those? And is that legal? Because when I called Charlie at Oxford Township, he said because Oxford Township doesn't have any laws, he can't do anything about it. I could call the sheriff, but because marijuana is legal, they can't do much about it. So, but if you bring a dog out, there's a marijuana house there. I mean, they put metal sheeting around what used to be a hot tub room attached to their house. And all I smell now is marijuana. And it's kind of embarrassing when I have people over and I go outside. So that's my concern.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else out in the public wishing to speak? Supervisor Curtis, did you have anything? You good? Yeah, you can if you'd like.
To address that, this is the first step in trying to take some of these concerns away. When you have a medical marijuana caregiver growing 72 plants, it becomes very, very annoying to sit outside and smell it. It becomes annoying with the fans running and the lights going. So this is our first attempt at getting an ordinance to put it in an area away from us. The state law says you must allow it. So we can zone it away from the residential areas. That's our first attempt at an ordinance.
Okay, thank you. Last call for anyone else out in the public wishing to speak. Okay, seeing none, I will entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing at 7:17.
I'll second.
Been moved and supported. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, let's move forward to the next section, comments from township consultants and staff. I don't think, let me see, double check, I don't think we've got that here. There's none there, so let's move on to commission discussion. Mr. Knoll, do you have anything?
No, I don't.
Mr. Bailey?
So,
Questions, comments?
yeah, so just to be clear, this will prohibit grow houses in residential areas and move it to industrial only, correct?
Correct.
And if we don't do anything, it will continue to allow people to grow in their homes.
Yep, but they can't do it for 12 people. The number of plants is limited.
Correct. You can still go up to 12, but once you get over 12, then you have to go to the industrial district under this ordinance. Unfortunately, that's about as low as we can go on it.
Now, Mr.
Correct.
Chair, can I just make a quick comment?
Mr. Byrd? Sure.
Hans, this is only for the idea of the medical marijuana condition for that purpose, right?
Correct. You have to be
under the Michigan law, under Michigan compiled rules that have been promulgated by the state of Michigan.
correct. In order to be a medical marijuana, you have to be a registered patient or a registered primary caregiver.
So we only want to comply to those conditions of the law, and then where we want to place it in the future, when we amend this ordinance, to put it in the LI, or the L1 and I2 district.
For more than 12 plants, correct.
Okay, I'm clear on that. I just, sorry if I interrupted from the earlier conversation.
Yeah, no problem. Any other questions or comments?
The only other thing I would add is, what is this going to do to those industrial businesses that are now going to have grow houses moving next door to them?
Currently, right now, an ordinance grow house will have stipulations on exhaust, fan lighting, all of the concerns that you can't really monitor closely in a small grow in a residential area. What it'll do for our businesses is really, hopefully, viewing and visiting some of the grow houses in those areas in other townships. You don't even know they're grow houses. For example, in Oregon, they grow thousands of plants and you don't even know it's a grow operation. But the difference in Oxford is we have a lot of vacant land and unutilized land in the I1 and I2 district that don't have buildings on them now. Those properties are being sought by people that want to get to an area where there is good electric and they won't cause those concerns to neighboring buildings like they do in other townships and cities. So hopefully this will address that, and we'll monitor the build out of those buildings to ensure the safety and health of the existing businesses.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments for the commission, from the commission? Mr. Knoll?
I've had an opportunity to work with this ordinance at the board level, and I went through this, and I'm very impressed with how detailed this is and how that grow facility is managed. Manages all the ways from the waste to the exhaust to the lighting to the security. So to put it out in that area under the guidelines of our ordinance as being petitioned by the township is the best thing for that type of facility.
Mr. Hendrick?
Yeah, I just want to make it clear to everybody, we're not approving any specific grow house or marijuana production facility. We're just trying to protect the community for any future petitioners who want to come here and set up a grow situation. Mm-hmm. We have nothing in place to protect ourselves.
Correct.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Berger?
I do want to thank the lady that got up and spoke about the idea of the smell from a growing facility, and especially next door as a neighbor. I appreciate your comments. I was looking for comments from the public tonight to help us generate an ordinance that's beneficial for the citizens of the community and plus by compliance with the law of what the state of Michigan has allowed. So I see one of our things, and I highlighted some stuff as you were making comments, that we have odors generated by the marijuana cultivation shall be contained within the marijuana cultivation building or the portion of the building used for marijuana cultivation. So this ordinance will then give some guidance and provide some ways for ordinance enforcement to then evaluate and see if a complaint comes in for the benefit of future citizens in this community. So I think there are some good points in the ordinance. I haven't gone through it with a fine-tooth comb. I've read almost all of it. And I think it's going to be beneficial for us as citizens in the community to help people like yourself with your comments. I just want to make that point clear. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome. Any other discussion? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion, Mr. Chair. I move to recommend to the Township Board to approve the zoning ordinance to amend the Charter Township of Oxford zoning ordinance number 67A as amended by amending the text of the section 2.2, 3.50 and 2, 5.35 and 6.26.
It's been moved. Is there support?
I'll support the motion for discussion.
Okay, it's been moved and supported. Is there any discussion of the motion? Seeing none, I'll call for a roll call vote.
Commissioner Bailey?
Yes.
Commissioner Berger?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunwick, yes. Commissioner Knopf?
Yes.
Commissioner Knoll?
Yes.
Commissioner Young?
Yes. Okay, that motion passes.
Motion passed.
We'll make our recommendation to the Township Board. Let's move to item number 9, which is unfinished business. I'm just going to stop the proceedings here for a minute, and if there's anyone in the public that just came for that particular topic and would like to move along, you can certainly do that at this time, and you're also invited to stay for the rest of the proceedings. Thank you, Mr. Rentrop. Appreciate it. Okay, let's move to item number 9, old business. There is none. Let's move to item 10, which is new business. Item 10A, temporary sales permit hours. Applicant is Tom Dunn on behalf of Jake's Fireworks out of Pittsburgh, Kansas. Applicant has applied to install a temporary sales tent for fireworks sales in the Meyer parking lot located at 900 North Pier Road from June 20 to July 5th. The applicant is requesting approval for extended hours of operation, which are greater than what the zoning ordinance currently has. Is the applicant here? You come up to the podium and state your name, please, and your address. And give us a brief synopsis of what you're applying for.
My name is Sheila Grunwald. I live at 409 East Clay Street, Schoolcraft, Michigan. And what we're applying for is to extend our business hours for that short amount of time that we have our tent there. Most of our tents are usually open until between 10 and midnight, generally through the state, for that July 2nd through the 4th, and usually 9 or 10 from June 20th through July 1st. So we're just asking the commissioners to let us be open a little bit longer.
So, Zach, the current hours of operation are 7 to 7, correct?
Correct.
Everything else you guys saw in your packs has been addressed, I believe. I think I've got some items from the fire chief that I'll inquire about. But really, we're just talking about maybe shifting those hours from 9 to 9 and then 10 o'clock on a couple of days in July, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Chief, can I call on you? You got anything special that was not addressed in your letters? Is there anything about the extended hours that's...
I don't have an issue with the extended hours. I did get a phone call from our representative after I did the initial review, and they were going to change some of the stuff on the drawing as far as showing locations of the barriers, generator, and that kind of things. But I have not, the picture you just put up there, I have not seen the updated picture or drawing to show what locations and stuff like that were. So this is the first time I'm seeing that picture.
Okay. I believe it was Sheila. Sheila, I'm sorry. You've seen the items that the chief has put in his original letters, correct? Are there any issues with any of those items? No. No. Okay. Any questions or comments from the commissioners?
I just have a quick question. It's really for you, Pete. In regards to the location where this is proposed to go, do you see any difficulty with any interruption with traffic or something that could incidentally happen? And where is the actual storage container going to be for the fireworks?
Again, without seeing the original picture, I mean, I'm assuming that that one red stripe there is what the storage container is going to be.
Right.
Okay. Yes, that should be fine there. But like I said, this is the first time I've seen it, but that should be the not a problem with that. Traffic movement should be, because the exterior road is still open and unimpeded.
Okay.
So there should not be any hassle with that. The orange lines that they've got going all the way around are the actual barricades that they have to do to keep cars and everything away from it, so you can't have a car driving up into or hitting the tent or anything like that. So we should be clear on that. Also, they have to have a generator to run their exit lights and emergency lights inside of the tent. Location on that is shown, so we should be good with that.
Okay, and then the actual container itself, are you satisfied with what type it is?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
And Zach, this non-meeting is handled administratively, it's just because they went for the extended hours, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Any other comments or questions from the commissioners?
Just one for verification.
Yeah, Mr. Berger.
The extended hours past 10 p.m. are what days, Louis? I heard originally 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., but possibly later on a couple days for the weekend times?
July 2nd through July 4th.
Till 10.
Until 10, right?
Yes.
Okay. 10 a.m. from July 2nd to July 4th. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion. Did you have a comment, Mr.
I'll entertain a motion in a minute. I just need to verify with the petitioner, 10 o'clock from July 2nd through the 5th or through the 4th? And then you're going to have 9 p.m. from June 20th through July 1st. Okay, I make a motion now, sir.
Okay.
I move that the Planning Commission approve the extended hours of operations until 9 p.m. June 20th through July 1st and 10 p.m. July 2nd through July 4th for Jake's Fireworks, 900 North Lapeer Road, 04-22-200-020 Zone C2, general commercial. Applicant Jake's Fireworks, Tom Dunn. This approval is based on the following findings. The temporary sale permit has been administratively reviewed and approved with the exception of the extended hours, and the proposed later hours of operations until 9 p.m. and 10 p.m. will not create unreasonable impacts on adjoining properties due to the current zoning and uses of those properties and the distance and screening between this site and the residential uses. Further, this approval is conditional upon the following. The approval shall be valid in future years for this temporary use provided the temporary use is substantially similar to the proposed use and it has been presently administratively approved and there are no substantial changes to the surrounding properties that require review of these extended hours. And I have no additional.
Roll call amendment, please.
Commissioner Roth? Yes. Commissioner Knoll? Yes. Commissioner Bailey?
Yes.
Commissioner Berger?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter? Yes. Commissioner Young?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Good luck with your sales. I'd like to move on to item 10B, final site plan. The applicant Clearview Homes for the Manitou Hills site condominium proposed new development. Is the applicant here? Yes. Okay, if so, if you would please approach the podium and give us your name, address, and a brief synopsis of what you're trying to accomplish this evening.
Thank you. Eric Knesny, Clearview Homes, address is 811 East South Boulevard, Rochester Hills. We're in front of the board today for final site plan approval for Manitou. We were here previously for preliminary site plan, received comments back, addressed those comments with the various departments, have subsequently resubmitted for final site plan, received favorable comments back, and have actually, most of you and most departments probably have not already seen them yet, but have actually addressed all of the comments in the final review as well, and have already resubmitted those as well.
So all the legal items were cleared?
Yes.
The fire chief had 2 concerns. Those are cleared?
Everything on every report that we received, and from our perspective, every single item has been addressed.
Okay, engineering and planning. Very good.
Yep.
Why don't we move to the engineering report or summary?
Jim Sharp, Sharp Engineering, Township Engineer. You should have our comment, our review letter that was performed on, or dated May 3rd regarding this project. In general, you know, there are a few little minor things, some spelling items and stuff. We've been through this with you before with the preliminary, but with regards to the site grading, the submitted grading plans meet the township standards for the site plan purposes. A more detailed review will be performed during the engineering phase of this. As far as this project will be connected to the sanitary sewer system, and the sanitary sewer system has sufficient capacity to support this development. It will also be connected to the township's water system. There's 3 locations that it will be connecting to, which will provide the adequate looping and system redundancy that we're always looking for, and improve the overall system itself. Stormwater runoff, they're proposing 2 locations to take their stormwater. One is going to be to a retention pond on the north side of the property, and then a small portion of it will drain to the south, which will go out to Manitou Lake. There are proposing pre-treatment structures so that all the sediments and salts and so forth are collected prior to entering both the retention pond or into the lake area. The pavements, this will be a private roadway. It's not going to be a road commission roadway. They are proposing a roadway that is 24 feet wide with asphalt with 5-foot gravel shoulders. There is no curbing. That is allowed under the ordinance since the development is under 20 units. There is no safety path required for this project because it doesn't abut the major arterial road. With the condominium documents and easements, that have been submitted for review, again, as Eric had mentioned, there were plans that were submitted subsequent to these reviews. I don't know, myself and Zach and everybody, it hasn't been circulated, but as Eric has indicated, he believes that he has addressed those issues. So they're definitely moving. They were very positive the first time around, so I would expect that they would be very close this time as well. So with that, I just take any questions from the commission at this time with regards to any of the engineering related items to this project.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Zach, Carlisle Morton Planning.
I'll head down there so everyone can see me. Either this is going to be really cool with the double technology here, or really sad. So I'll not address the items that Mr. Sharp spoke to. For those in the audience, this is an 18-unit site condominium, which is a fancy way to say 18 lots for single-family residential. As a reminder of the process, they previously received preliminary site plan approval from this body. This body did waive the requirement to have sidewalks. The next step following this body's action, whether it's favorable or unfavorable, is with the Township Board. That's for all residential site condominiums. There's too many buttons for me to touch. If I were a younger kid, it'd be much easier. It is in the R2 district. All of the lots, all the proposed lots meet the developmental standards. The only thing we have noted, and this is, as they said, addressed in later iterations, is the minimum driveway width and driveway setbacks be added to the site plan. That's a relatively new element in the zoning ordinance. For natural resources, we have no concerns. For access and circulation, the only thing we noted from the set that went to this body was the location of the no parking signs. The notation said it should be on the same side as the fire hydrants, but it was actually shown on the other side, so just clearing that up. For essential services, Mr. Sharp addressed that. For landscaping and screening, the condominium documents state that the developer installs them, and then after it's been turned over, the individual owners are responsible for maintaining it. There's not going to be any lighting. There were some issues with the signage that was proposed in the plans you brought. My understanding is the applicants have just removed the sign. It's not a requirement to have a sign for these developments. The proposed buildings meet the developmental standards, and just a couple of issues for the master deed and bylaws to be touched up from what was submitted. And that's what I've got.
Thank you, Zach. At this time, I'll entertain public comment if there's anyone out in the audience wishing to make a comment or to raise a concern. You're invited to come up to the lectern, give your name and your address, and again, you'll have 3 minutes to talk to the Planning Commission. Is there anyone out in the public wishing to speak?
Yes, my name is Ron Coleman. I live at 1591 Dakota Court, which is the street that this development is going to empty out onto. This is emptying into the lakes of the Indian Wood subdivision, and we have very tight architectural controls in our neighborhood. and I don't think that these homes are going to have the same type of controls that we have. Our homes are all custom built in Lakes of Indianwood. My concern is that this is going to affect our property values, especially since we live right on Dakota Court. And some research we've done says that there's a 1 mile radius that this may affect, and that's a lot of homes within the Lakes of Indianwood subdivision. So right now there are 6 homes on Dakota Court, and this is 18 more. It's going to affect our traffic, I think, and there are young families that live on this street as well. It's a very quiet street right now, and it's not going to be quiet, I think, with 18 more homes that are going to be installed in this subdivision. So the prior builder, we'd asked that they actually have this subdivision exit onto Poppy Hill or Teelan, which are to the north of this instead of coming into our subdivision. But I can understand why they want to come into our subdivision, because we have a very nice subdivision. Our homes are very valuable in our subdivision, and they're going to get all the advantages of tying into our street, coming into our subdivision without any of the disadvantages. So I don't think that I don't know if Clearview is going to pay to join our HOA that we have, but it looks like their families are going to be able to use all the amenities that are in the Lakes of Indianwood subdivision. So that's what my thought is, or my request is, that you give consideration to having the entrance and exit go into a different subdivision with the same kind of character that is going to be in the Clearview type homes that we've seen around the area.
Is that it?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, thank you.
Less than 3 minutes, I hope.
Anyone else out in the public wishing to speak?
My name is Gary Such. I'm 1648 Eagle Trail, and I'm with the Homeowners Association of Lakes of Indianwood. Some of the things that I guess kind of just bother us is we tried to learn about this subdivision, so a lot of these questions get answered ahead of time from our residents. And we go through the different websites and so on, and we have to request meeting minutes and so on, and we find out that the preliminary plan, which we thought was going to be a hearing, data was submitted on the 1st and 2nd of December. You talked about it on your December 10th meeting. Wasn't really brought up as a public hearing or even a public meeting at that time. Then we find out February 25th there's going to be a final public hearing on it, where we can go and learn about these things. And then that 25th meeting gets canceled, and then we don't hear anything more about a reschedule. So I went in, and we're still trying to find out the information on this, and I talked to Zach last week about it, and he said, well, we really don't have to tell you anything. It's kind of up to us. Okay, that's fine, but that's not really the message that should be sent to the people in your township. And especially when you send out a notice for a public hearing, and then you retract it. And I asked, well, why did you retract that, or why was it canceled? So, well, the only reason we really wanted that to make sure we got any last-minute items that might have been missed, because we had a lot of personnel changes in the township office. Well, we have that information we'd like to give you, or we'd like to have those questions answered. I've tried for 2-3 months with Eric's group and Jerry Griffith there to get a listing of our questions that we had, and you can tell us to go stick it whatever you want, but it'd be a nice thing to know how this thing is going in, how it's going to affect people, because there are people in this area that live here. And what I'm hearing so far, these little details. Well, the devil's in the details, and that's how people get hurt and upset and angry. We had a resident send in February 16th a whole list of concerns for the public hearing to you folks. Nobody answered her. Like I said, I've been trying with Clearview Homes to get a response. Basic questions. Rational concerns for safety, or the engineering of it, and so on. Haven't got a sound. And we come here, and it's not even noted this is going to be a public hearing, it's going to be a public meeting. Okay, and thankfully you're even listening to us for that amount. But we're still, when we leave here, I assume this is going to be a decision meeting, and you're going to approve or reject this proposal. And what have we learned? And maybe you don't care, but we're here because we do want to protect our property values, and theirs too. It's important for all of us. We've got that Teelan Road mess, we've got trailer parks, all different kind of things. We'd like to know what's going on in this sub. So I don't know, you know, talking to a wall, because when we hear this, that, gee, you don't have to tell us anything, well then, don't come up with public hearings, public meetings, this, that, or the other thing. If you're going to have a public hearing, have a public hearing. It's important to us. So, you know, I understand you guys can put buildings in, they meet your codes and all that kind of stuff, that's great. But there's also people living around here. And we like to say we come from Oxford. And sometimes that's pretty tough. We'd like to at least know, where's the construction road coming from? Can you direct it so that it's only M24 to Drainer to Pathfinder and that's it? Not traipsing through the whole road. We just went through the M24 fiasco. All the traffic went through our subdivision. That's a lot of traffic and wear and tear on our roads. And yes, we know they're public roads, but we end up spending extra money to keep them, to keep our property values up. And okay, that's our choice. I understand that. But at the same time, these are the little things we could work, hopefully, with these people and you to try to get these things sorted out so it goes a little more smooth. So I'm sure I'm on my past 3 minutes, and there's some other people I know from our sub that are going to want to talk as well. But I don't know, guys. Why can't we have public hearings and talk about this stuff? Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Anyone else out in the public wishing to speak? Please state your name and your address.
Hello, I'm Susan Montgomery, and I live at 1044 Inca Trail. I'm president of the Manitou Lake Association, and I visited the Oxford Township offices on Monday, and I reviewed the site plans for Manitou Hills. There are a number of improvements to previous plans to address the wetlands that they are adjacent to. After reading the condominium bylaws, however, I noted that there was no mention of the wetlands. Someone purchasing one of these wetland-facing units might have no idea how important and fragile wetlands are. A property owner could build a dock or inadvertently damage wetlands who might otherwise have treated them with respect. Because of this, I contacted Mr. Andrew Hartz. He is supervisor of the Water Resource Unit at Eagle, and I inquired about the proper way for me to proceed in order to potentially change the verbiage in the bylaws regarding environmentally sound ways to treat the wetlands. Of course, I began my message by thanking him for his work on the site plans. His response was only 4 sentences that read, "Thank you, but I am not sure we are the ones to thank. Eagle has not seen a permit application for this site. Sounds like the township may have been working, no, excuse me. Sounds like the township has been talking with them. As a reminder, any work along the shoreline/wetlands at this location requires an Eagle permit." Signed, Andy. This message came to me only yesterday afternoon, and I'd be happy to forward it to anyone who needs to see it. But at this point, I need to ask Clearview to please show the board and this meeting their permit to build along the wetlands of Lake Manitou.
They don't actually have a permit to build. That hasn't been given or issued yet.
Has it been applied for?
No.
No, I mean, we couldn't apply for a permit. It's not that big of a process.
I see. I see. So you went, at what point?
Way too early in the process for us to even attempt to apply for a permit.
At what point in the process do you apply?
After everything is approved through the township.
Right, 25 feet up. And the out. So what's the problem?
You built.
It has to be done.
We went through that December. We went through that December.
So you built the settlement of Manitou, is that correct?
We did not develop, we built.
You built it?
Probably, I don't know, 10, 15 homes in there. We bought development lots. We didn't do anything.
You built the homes?
Did,
yeah, okay, so did you have, did you go through and get a permit from the Eagle?
No, there's no Eagle permit required to build on an individual lot that's already developed. That would have been applied for and received when the development itself was done.
But this particular development will require an Eagle permit that will happen after this approval?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Susan, can you come back up, please, 1 minute? I've recognized Andrew Hart's name before we passed from the DEQ. And what is his position now? Again, would you explain? Could you just mention his name?
He's the supervisor of the water resource unit.
Okay.
And all applications would go through them. And he indicated, pardon me?
Through the state of Michigan?
Yes.
Okay. Just want to make sure we're on track with the same person.
Yes.
All right, so you know that he has to have an application submitted and then reviewed and approved by them prior to the development of that property.
Correct.
Correct, that's what I wrote down. I just want to make sure I'm on the same track of what you said.
Right.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah, and I got the impression that he felt like he would have been involved already, but
I heard what Eric said, and I heard what you said, and then I heard what he stipulated that they would still have to then apply for
sure.
To go through the format to be able to develop the property. All right, I think I understand what's going on. Thank you for your time on that.
Anyone else out in the public wishing to speak?
Dave PC, 1834 Twin Lakes Boulevard. One question, the comment about the retention ponds to prevent salts, or I think that was the term, from leaching into the lake. Who's responsible for monitoring that after the completion of the development to make sure that it's working properly and preventing damage to the lake?
Okay, I noted your question. We'll get that answered for you in a little bit. Anyone else out in the public wishing to speak?
My name is Diane Couture. I live at 580 Knollwood Drive, Lake Orion. I'm actually on Manitou Lake, the Orion Township side. I am very concerned about all of this going in. I've lived there for 40 years. I don't care if you do a retention pond, whatever works for you, but the fact that the gentleman said, we will have a retention pond and then the rest of it will drain into Manitou Lake, I have a total issue with. We have taken samples of our lake to DNR. Manitou Lake is clean enough to be drinking water. I live on a hill. I can see from all of my windows right down to the bottom. The lake is so clear. Also, where this development is going in is the north side of the lake. If you have any idea of how nature works, that's all marshland on the north side. I'm assuming it's half protected because all the swans nest there. That's the one place that's complete marshland, so that all of the water fowl nest there right now. Even on Manitou Lake, we have in our own homeowners association rules that, you know, through May, we don't go over there. We don't go to the islands. We don't go anywhere that's marshland to disrupt any of the, migratory birds nesting. I feel like, I know that this is getting, moved farther down. It's not time for approval yet. We don't want to get, I don't know if Oxford is working. I know the north side of our lake is Oxford Township. South side is all Manitou and Inca Trail, Absaquami. That's Orion Township. So I feel like if we're not right on top of this, things are going to happen and we're going to be kind of stuck with it. So my biggest concern right now is any of those salts or anything draining into the lake, because right now, if you want to come to my house and look, it's pristine, it's beautiful. So those are my major concerns, and I just don't want Orion Township to be an afterthought. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else out in the public wishing to speak?
Evening, I'm Tom Bailey. I'm 1775 Chieftain Circle. That's also over in the lakes of the Indian Woods. I just want to say that I'm in total agreement with the first gentleman that spoke, and the excessive traffic I think this will bring is not what we need in our neighborhood. There's a constant cut through the subdivision as it is, and this will just make it even worse.
Thank you. Anyone else out in the public wishing to speak? Yes, ma'am.
I'm Pam Coperi. My address is 1054 Inca Trail, and I would like to support what the young lady just before this last gentleman said about protecting the wetlands and the natural wildlife that is there. I live in Oxford Township though, so people in Oxford Township are also very concerned about that area. When the settlement of Manitou went in, half of the lake, I've lived there for over 20 years, half the lake was non-developed. And at that time we had a lot of wildlife there. When settlement of Manitou, my understanding was they couldn't build docks or anything on the wetlands there, but quite a few of the homeowners did, and I get that. I live on the lake. It's, it's just beautiful. But there was a little bay area there where wood ducks, I used to just love to kayak there because there was an unbelievable amount of wildlife there, and there's none now. And I'm just very concerned about that, and I hope that people will kind of take a look and not just rush through this, but make sure that our concerns are heard. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak?
Hi there, Bree Budson, 1550 Dakota Court. My house is right along the arc. If somebody came out too fast on this roadway that they're proposing, my mailbox would be gone. My 3-year-old would possibly be hit. We are just very concerned. We knew when we bought the house a year ago that this was a possibility, that the property was for sale. But without having this public, discussion instead of just comments, I'm unaware of, are they going to take down every single tree in this vicinity? I don't know if you've driven through our subdivision, Lakes of Indian Wood, but we take great pride in our nature and our trees. I can't even cut down a tree in my subdivision without having approval and proving that it's dead. And I've been through other Clearview subdivisions in Oxford, more specifically White Pine Way, one of their latest developments. Almost every tree is gone off of that road, off of Stanton, to put in these homes. And I understand that makes it cheaper and easier to build a ton of homes all at once. But when I look out my office window and I watch 8 deer, just tracking across the grass right now, and all of that's going to be gone, because every tree is going to be possibly wiped out. We don't know these things. So all of our nature, we have a den of foxes that are living over there right now that we like to watch out our window, and these are the reasons that we moved to our subdivision. And so I'm just concerned that, you know, this hasn't been addressed, and so with this approval, they could possibly go and rip down every single tree. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else out in the public wishing to speak? Okay, seeing none, let's get into the engineering reports and the planning report. Let's start with planning first.
You want me to answer the specific questions?
As you go through it and you can answer some of these questions, I've made a list. I'm sure the other commissioners have made a list of the public concerns, and hopefully we can address some of those.
I don't have much to add from what I said originally. Concerning traffic, the township ordinance does require a traffic study if expected volumes are above a certain level, and this is well below that level. Let's see. For the stormwater, Mr. Sharp could address that better than I can. I do want to address the don't really have to tell us anything comment that was brought up. In the state of Michigan, in the Zoning Enabling Act, there are certain things that the state says you must hold a public hearing for. Zoning map amendments, zoning text amendments like we had earlier, special land uses. When it comes to site plan reviews, that's up to the community to decide. The community can require a public hearing. It can have the planning commission approve it as just part of a regular meeting without noticing. It can have township board approve it. It could even have staff approve it. We did send out earlier this year notices 300 feet as if it were a public hearing. It's not required by the zoning ordinance. And that was an error. We wanted to make sure we were covered just in case that had been the previous practice. But we do have documents available at the Township Hall for folks to come in and see during regular business hours, and I've been working with the communications director to get more documents onto the website so folks can see those outside of times. The township does have minimum square footage for buildings, for residential buildings, and it was raised whether or not these would be big enough to match the neighborhood. As far as the township is concerned, you have to look and see whether or not they match what the zoning ordinance minimum size for buildings are, for dwellings are, and they do meet that. A number of folks raised questions about wetlands. For the state's regulatory sphere, there are two types of wetlands: state-regulated wetlands and non-state regulated wetlands. And it's kind of funky to define something by what it's not, but that's the binary system that it works. State-regulated wetlands are any wetlands greater than 5 acres, wetlands that are adjacent to a public water body, and special wetlands with special characters. On the site there are several wetlands. There's the larger one between the development area and Manitou Lake to the south. There's a small one, I believe, in Lot 1, and then there's a larger one. My glasses are really old, I can't see from down here, up on the north side of the road. The two on the north side of the road are not considered state-regulated wetlands. The wetland standards that Oxford Township has tie bars with what the state standards are. So those, the township does not have any regulatory standards for those, nor does the state. The larger one on the south, the township has in its zoning ordinance a natural features buffer of 25 feet. So you can't build anything within 25 feet of the wetland, and that is shown on the site plan, even if it's within your lot. So that is one way that that's addressed. I will say also the lots north of the street do not have access to the lake or to the wetlands. The only ones that touch it are the ones on the south side. There has been an access easement created, I believe, on the west lot on the south side in case there's need to get in there to manage invasive species or something else like that. That had been added. And those are the notes that I have. Were there any specific questions that I missed?
I'll bring those up in a minute.
Okay.
Well, let me get Mr. Sharp to go through the engineering. If you can address any of the concerns that you heard Mr. Sharp in reference to the retention ponds.
Yeah, as Zach mentioned, real quick about the wetland buffers, obviously the water quality of the lake and the wetlands is a big issue with the residents that have voiced their opinions tonight. So we have that 25-foot natural features buffer that is shown on the site plan, so they can't build within that. As far as the stormwater quality and the portions of road drainage that would be going to the wetland and then ultimately into the lake, again, we require that the applicant put in the pre-treatment devices. One resident, I believe it was, I don't know if it was Dave, who asked who takes care of that. It is the homeowner's responsibility to maintain the drainage network and those pre-treatment structures. However, there are stipulations in the condominium documents that tell about the time that it needs to be looked at, and if proper maintenance of those facilities are not performed, then the township does have the ability to step in and clean out those structures. This is not an uncommon practice. People who live in the settlement of Manitou, the lakes of Indianwood, the moors, water seeks the lowest place. So even their drainage systems from their roadways and so forth, it ultimately ends up into wetlands, our lakes, and our streams, our rivers, the creek, Paint Creek, things of that nature. It seeks its lowest level. So our job is to manage that as best possible and remove all the pollutants and so forth before it enters those bodies of water. And that's what the pre-treatment structures in this case will do. So, yeah, Zach he mentioned here, because the roadway doesn't have any curbing, it's not going to be concentrated into storm, basically into some catch basins that then go directly into some pipes and out. It will sheet flow off into the ditches, so you're going to get some filtration through those ditches as well over time before the water actually makes it into, makes its way down to this pre-treatment structure. And so that's just additional filtration that will be occurring there before it reaches the wetlands or the lake. I know Andy Hart's down at Eagle as well, and any improvements that are proposed by the applicant that affect the wetlands or the lake would have to go through his office. And I think that's really the items that I had. If I missed any, I'd be over here and I'd be happy to answer any more.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I would like to get some feedback, some comments, some questions, some concerns or whatever we've got from the commissioners, please. Mr. Humwick?
I just wanted to ask one question. Zach, I see what you addressed this, but I missed it, but was lot 11 issue resolved?
It's perfect time for my computer to use up here. Okay. I haven't had a chance to go through the revised plans that were submitted, so I can't speak to that directly right now. I'm trying to access this. I can give a peek through hard copies that are up at the table to see that.
You know the issue I'm referring to?
Not the specific one, no.
The square footage?
Huh?
The square footage? You said it had to be redrawn to meet the minimum standard?
Yes, I believe that has been in the revision.
That's been corrected?
I believe, yes.
Any other comments or questions? Mr. Knoll?
I need to refresh a little bit of history. We have visited this last year, possibly with another developer. Is that correct, this Manitou site?
Mm-hmm.
And I believe we addressed the drainage and the filtration thereof that goes down into the lake. Can you help me with my memory here? Somebody jump in?
Yep.
And at that point in time, we didn't have any issues with that developer. This developer is primarily doing the same concept with the property. We allowed him to be omitted from putting the curbing in, and the discussion was with that would help the drainage. We have to manage the pre-treatment drainage management program, but the township can step in on that if it's not corrected. Do we have anything, Zach, that you know of that's in the bylaws of the subdivision to manage those?
The brief version is yes. So the stormwater management system is what's called a general common element.
That's before it gets to the wetlands. It's the storm management system. That's number one, the first one, right? The first stop is the storm management system, then it goes through that into the wetlands.
Yep, so the first stop is it goes into the swale on the side of the road, and I'm riffing so Mr. Sharp can collect his notes. So the first stop is it goes into the swale on the side of the road, and from there it's directed to a pre-treatment system which is designed to get out any sediment before it goes to the other place. And my understanding is that it has that both the swales and then the pre-treatment forebay has a certain capacity. So it holds water, and only once it gets past a certain point would water be directed south or be directed into the wetlands and then eventually into the lake.
If we exceed the requirements with this site plan from the water's edge up to where it's starting to go through the marshland or through the wetland.
Could you rephrase the question?
Well, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but I'm just going back to a lot of history because I got really involved with this before. We exceed the requirements after it leaves that secondary basin and goes into the wetlands before it gets to the lake. The distance between the lake water edge and that point, we exceed that distance. Is that correct?
I believe so. I would defer to Mr. Sharp on the technical
This is
details.
going back a long time ago.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
And then the applicant will have to file with the Eagle for some of those properties that are on the south side, not the north side.
For any work that they do in the regulated wetland areas?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, that's a regulated wetland. It exceeds, the township regulates up to what, like 2 acres or something, or 5
So is it
acres?
safe to say we've done our due diligence as the township in preserving those wetlands and preserving that lake through this developer and possibly who was before? And I don't know, correct me if it was
I believe, they have met the ordinance requirements showing the 25-foot natural 25-foot natural features setback. The stormwater, preservation, that doesn't enter into the 25-foot setback itself. It stops short of that area. I was digging through this. This is page 7 of the master deed, and I'll just read it so that people are aware of it. The cost of maintenance, repair, and replacement of all general common elements, which Zach had referred to earlier. This would be part of the general common element. The storm, surface, and subsurface water drainage and retention area of the general common element roadways shall be borne by the association, subject to the provision, blah, 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 blah. In the event that the association fails to provide adequate maintenance, repair, or replacement of the general common elements, storm, surface, or subsurface water drainage or retention area, The township shall thereupon have the power and authority, but no obligation to enter onto the property or cause its agents and contractors to enter onto the property to perform such maintenance and preservation as reasonably found by the township to be appropriate. So that comments about who maintains the system, the HOA is the first line of defense, but should they not live up to their obligations, then the township can step in and do what they need to do, in their opinion, spend the money as appropriate, and then build the association, I guess, at that point.
Now, without putting you on the spot, where's the checks and balances for that? HOA doesn't do it, it's deficient, how do we know?
I believe that if I read through this further, and I'm sorry, I don't know these things in and out.
I know I'm putting you on the spot.
Everyone's different,
yes. But
there's probably a timing of when those events are to occur, whether it's a yearly maintenance inspection or a bi-yearly. Those inspections are performed by the HOA though, so yes, we are taking them on their good faith and word there that is operating properly. However, there are easements on the property, so if there are any inklings that something is not operating properly, then the township does have the rights to go on there and inspect it themselves to do such thing. Now, normally we don't do that unless it's brought up by a resident to do so, but the township could step in and handle that as well.
Mr. Bailey.
One question, looking at one of these drawings, it looks like lot 6, 7, and then 10 through 16, probably a third or more of that property is in wetlands. Then when you add in the 25-foot buffer, it doesn't really leave a big building envelope. Are these houses going to be set very close to the curb, or what's that going to look like? Because I mean, it's almost like the house, to have a decent-sized house to match what's out there now, these things are going to be sitting right up against that buffer. And as far as the wetlands, I know we keep talking about the HOA, but let's be honest, there's 18 homes at $500 a year association fees. They're not going to squat to pay for wetland cleanup. That's going to fall back on the township.
Eric from Clearview, can you address the location of the home? How far back that's?
Yeah. As far as the building envelope, I mean, these are typical building envelopes that exist all across the township. We can build pretty much any size home in them, and there won't be an issue between there and the setbacks. We actually built 5 or 6 homes in Lakes of Indianwood, so to slightly address part of the comments that were made earlier, our homes will absolutely fit in with the homes that are currently built there. I personally drove through Lakes of Indianwood again this morning, and yeah, there were a few elevations shown and put up on the screen earlier, and our homes absolutely fit in with the look and the feel of what's in the Lakes of Indianwood community. Like I said, we previously built 5 or 6, and one of them actually just resold and went pending a week or so ago in Lakes of Indianwood. And but as far as specifically about the building envelopes, and I can dig through here and tell you the specifics of exactly what the setbacks are in the building envelope if you'd like. But there's plenty of room within those lots. You have to realize the lot itself is so big, it looks deceiving on this site plan because of that. But the envelopes are extremely large. And, you know, just to make a few other comments, we actually there's the zoning right there. You know, if actually that's actually on the page. We actually dialed back the quantity of lots and the impact on the wetlands, the trees, the forests from what the previous applicant had done. We actually removed 5 or 6 lots from what was previously submitted. And actually, it's hard to read that, but the comments from the future land use actually show this as R1, which we didn't propose. We actually kept it as R2, larger lots, less homes. We're trying to minimize the impact. We don't, you know, one of the residents brought up the comment about clear cutting or taking down all the trees, and actually specifically referenced Savannah Ridge. That community, actually, we did minimize the tree clearing. There were specific lines of trees that were there, but the majority of that 40-acre parcel was actually previously clear. Most of it was clear. There were some big tall pine lines that we designed the community around and actually took extra care, really, and it cost us additional money to put it in to try and minimize that. We're doing the same thing here. We're not maximizing the quantity of lots or the quantity of homes in there. We've taken extra care, and again, it really has cost us money to dial back the quantity of homes because it is a very beautiful site. It is unique. We have taken special care. There are wetland buffers. I mean, if you look at where the wetlands are and the proposed detentions, we worked around those. We didn't in any way, shape, or form try to do wetland mitigation and fill in areas. We did the opposite. We took special care to preserve those areas. And I mean, literally, and we had these conversations at the preliminary about the challenges of this site, and that's one of the reasons why we dialed it back, to be able to have a minimal impact on the trees and the wetlands. And I feel like we've gone above and beyond to really address that.
Well, I have a few things. You touched on one or two. I had a couple of things that I wrote down that the public had concerned about that I wanted to hear your opinion on and understand better. The clear cutting, you're going to cut the envelopes for the building areas, correct? And then obviously the street.
Yeah, our clearing plan will be clearing the minimum that we need to clear for roads, utilities, and a building envelope. Right in our purchase agreement, in every community we ever build, is a clause that says we only clear 15 feet around where we need to build. We don't want to, nor do we have any desire to cut down a single extra tree. And that's, again, it's right in every one of our purchase agreements. That's all we do. And in this case, again, we're not going to cut down a single tree beyond what's needed for the specific development and the utilities and the building envelopes.
Yeah. You did touch on if that is zoned appropriately for actually more homes than you've got going in. It could have come from the north with homes of that size in that area, and I don't think anyone from the Lakes of Indian would really want to see that either. Nonetheless, I did write down that, could you just briefly, I know you don't have to name them all by name, but just give me give the audience an idea of your construction materials in estimated square footage of what the facades and elevations should be looking like?
Sure. I mean, that's one of our popular ranch plans. And again, I was in there this morning in Lakes of Indian ones, so I have a very crisp, clear idea of what many of the elevations look like. There's these elevations. I mean, obviously these are pictorial, but you could go on our website right now and look at actual pictures of those actual plans built. And honestly, if you drove through Lakes Indian Wood right now and looked at some of the ranches that are there, these homes are much more architecturally pleasing. There's ranch homes in there built that are just solid brick on the face, and that's it. So from an exterior, elements, I mean, this is a good depiction of what a ranch would look like. Our typical ranch, and in there, what we built in Oxford, a lot of. I would expect this home, or we actually have a larger version of this ranch that's 2,300 square foot. It's actually called the Jefferson 2. Again, you could go on our website and see actual pictures of those. Colonial-wise, I would expect that the market in this area is going to be from 2,800 to 3,500 square foot will probably be the average. And again, from a colonial standpoint, typical buyer is going to be brick first floor. On the face will be brick and stone on the front elevation, and the second floor sides and rear would typically be siding.
Okay. And for the audience as well, can you just restate your process for applying to Eagle?
as far as applying for the permit?
Yes.
Yeah, part of any development process, I mean, this is, right now what we're standing here doing today is really pretty preliminary of those permits. Even if we wanted to go apply for a permit right now, there's really nothing for us to apply for. So part of the process after we get through, 3 or 4 more steps with the township to get final site plan, all approvals through all the different departments, before we even step foot on site or can do anything, we have to apply for all of the permits and get approvals back before we could do anything. So Eagle would be one of them, along with a litany of other permits that are required before, any of the work could even be done in the community.
Okay, thank you. Are there more questions or concerns or points made by the commissioners?
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Berger.
This probably isn't really for Eric, but maybe Jim. I don't want to put you on a spot, but I looked at an overhead right now, a little overhead view of the property and the lake and such, and it looks like with lots 10 through 18 on this development, there's a very large area of wetlands activity area, which would be in their backyards. But does it really front the waterway of the lake? Like, you believe in your mind that's going to have access to the water? I mean, do you see what I'm talking about? Like, when you look at it,
I can answer that if you want, Tom. I mean,
well,
Jim can.
Okay.
Jim, I think practically.
Then I get to talk to you about it. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I can if you. I mean.
No, I was looking for an opinion. I was looking for an opinion first, but go ahead and answer it.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah, practically, I think what you're saying is, no, they're not really lakefront. It's not like you walk down the lot and you're at that water's edge. You're hundreds and hundreds of feet through marshy wetlands area.
That's what I'm referring to.
Yeah, which technically most of it's not even on the specific lot, right? It's beyond the lot. There's a small portion on those lots that you're specifically addressing, 11 through 17 really, if you go the other way. But yeah, there's a large marshy wetlands area, most of which is outside of the lot itself.
So typically what you're stating then is most of those properties are all on the upland side of that and not within the wetlands activity area?
Absolutely.
From lots 10 through 18?
Absolutely.
Okay, I was concerned about the lots that Mr. Bailey brought up earlier with numbers 6 and 7. I mean, they really encroach with a piece of wetlands area behind them, so you are going to be a little crowded. Like if someone puts a house there and you have that wetland buffer behind you, it looks difficult to put a deck or something on, in my opinion. The only other thing, some of the questions I had have already been answered, and I don't want to be redundant. I don't know how to ask this question in regards to have the deed restrictions and the bylaws for the language of this been accepted and approved by the township attorneys at this point in time, or are they still going back and forth?
No, everything that was in your packet in terms of the township attorney has been corrected by the applicant.
But I saw a letter from the township attorney dated the 3rd of May. It said maybe in the last paragraph of her comments, I was reading it, that she was concerned about certain things. So I just want to make sure that's been taken care of. Average trips per household are normally 7 per day, based on the data that we normally utilize. As far as that's 126 trips within that subdivision coming from one way or another. They're either going to come from the north or they're going to come from the south to get to Dakota Court. I think there's always been a problem with traffic going through the subdivision in the past. It's a county road. I don't know if there's any way that anything can be done about it. I personally quit using it because I used to cheat through there myself, and I thought, well, maybe I'll just stop. That's only me talking. So I was concerned about that also. Some of the residents got up and spoke. I know some of them were concerned about that. It sounds like maybe the values of the houses I wrote down, 2,800 square foot to 3,400 square foot. You had a nice sized ranch. I looked at some of the elevation views of the home. They look appropriate maybe for the condition of some of the neighborhoods. There was concern of one of the earlier individuals talking about property values and such. I wrote all the notes down on that. Yeah, it's a tough one. But I think we're trying to do the due diligence to make sure that everybody's going to be somewhat protected in this case. Maybe not everybody will be happy, but maybe the majority of it works. So that's it. Thanks.
Well, I do know that we could go in with a higher density in there.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's to the advantage of the neighboring communities. Mr. Hunwick?
That was the question I was going to ask. If he was actually conforming to the zoning that allowed there, how many more lots would be in there?
I don't know. I don't know.
Approximately 3, 4, 5 more?
Oh, no. I mean, if it was for the future land use?
Right.
Is that what you're saying?
No, yes. For the present zoning.
Oh, current zoning, there was an original plan that, I had in front of me that I believe was 24, 25. So, 7 or so. If you actually went to the R1, which was what was proposed in the future land use, probably another 20 houses.
Right. So you could have been up to 40 houses or something.
There is 13.
Mr. Sharp?
Again, this is in the master deed. Again, this is regarding comments that Mr. Bailey and Mr. Berger had regarding the units that are up close to that wetland there. And in here it specifically says that units 5, 6, and 7 shall include portions of an easement for stormwater drainage and unit boundaries, but co-owners, including but not limited to units 5, 6, and 7, shall not install any improvements within the easement of the storm drainage. Should any improvements be installed, the easement drainage, yada, yada, yada. Units 5, 6, and 7 shall not install any improvements, including but not limited to patios, decks, house additions, pools, fences, walls, sheds, play structures, and so on. So, again, we're trying to address everything because I think just as you and the public have commented on, we're seeing these issues as well, and so that was a note that was brought up.
Jim, did you just stipulate that was within the deed restrictions?
This is in the master deed.
In the master deed.
It's on page 17 of the master deed. It's written in there.
Okay, for lots 5, 6, and 7?
That's what it says. Units 5, 6, and 7 shall not install improvements, including patios, decks, so on. Now, this is that encroach in that area. I mean, right. if they can, you got to remember too that you're seeing these little boxes up here, which might be drawn at like 50 by 50.
Oh, I get it.
Obviously, the houses when they come in are, they got jigs and jogs around them, so they might be able to put a deck on there. But it's specifically in the master deed here that that they're not going to encroach, which we would not allow them to anyway. Myself and Zach, we would look at it and say, well, this goes in the 25-foot buffer, but they've even gone a step further and put that in the master deed. And I remember that I just brought this was at the request of the township attorney.
Most of those bases covered.
And actually, for that wetland, wait till I get the microphone. Actually, for the wetland that you see on the top there, that is extending into units 5, 6, and 7.
Yeah.
That's not considered a state-regulated wetland. It's not big enough.
It's still a wetlands activity area.
But the state has no prohibition.
I'm not saying that they have to get a permit from the state, but they still have to abide by the rules of the township's wetland ordinance.
The township's wetland ordinance is consistent with the state-regulated size.
Okay.
So for the township, if you have something below 5 acres or not connected to a public water, you can essentially fill it. Okay. And the township doesn't have regulatory things in place to stop it. Again, if it's these particular classes. So in this case, actually using it as part of the stormwater management system and having that.
As long as it doesn't intensify the stormwater runoff to the adjacent property owner.
Yeah, well, and what it does in this case is it preserves it as a wetland instead of it getting filled in. Yep.
Any other questions, comments, concerns?
Mr. Chair, I'm prepared to make a motion.
Yeah, I'll entertain a motion.
I want to explain to the board that we have a new format that we're using. The format is documented in our packet, so I'll be addressing the format in the packet that has the numbers associated with the individual issues.
Yep, let me interrupt you just for one moment.
I'm sorry.
There is something I wanted to talk about to everyone to make sure you understand. So that's 18 units going in. It's a lot less density than what could have gone in, okay? I also want to remind the commissioners that we're not giving final site plan approval. What we are going to do is we have to give our recommendation to the Township Board. The Township Board meets and approves all final site plans. So if there's any other additional concerns that you come up with later on or something like this, or the members of the public, you have another opportunity to voice that concern or opinion at the Township Board level when they vote on it for their final site plan approval. Mr. Knoll, you can continue with your motion. I'm sorry to interrupt.
I make a motion to adapt this Oxford Township Planning Commission resolution on a final site plan for Manitou Hills and a private road. It's a resolution for the final site plan for a residential site condominium submitted by Lisa Shackton on behalf of the Clearview Homes for property located south of Drainer, west of Lapeer, and north of Manitou Lake, Section 34 of Oxford Township, 0434426007. There are actions in our packet for distribution to the Planning Commission. These are actions 10 through 210. There are 4 edits that I'm going to propose with this. Item 110 is going to read the received following public input. Item 190 is a favorable resolution. Item 200, it grants approval for the private road. And I'm adding this item 210. It references the May 3rd, 2021 attorney letter, last paragraph, where there's more information regarding proposed master deed document submitted by Susan Morris.
Been moved by Mr. Knoll. Any second?
Support.
And supported by Ms. Knopf. Is there any discussion on the resolution, the motion?
What's the last paragraph is referring to?
The last paragraph is section 210. Which includes the attorney letter's response from May 3rd. From Susan Morris. I'm sorry?
The applicant will also need, is that what he's referring to?
Mr. Knoll, did you say they need to address the issues in that letter?
Easier if you just read it out loud.
Section 210.
You can just read the first
210, the last phrase in the paragraph, the applicant also needs to address the comments in other consultant review. We would recommend that the Planning Commission hold in suspense its review and action on the proposed master deed document until the revised documents are provided.
Any other discussion on the motion? Okay, seeing none, I'll call for a roll call.
Hey, Commissioner Knoll?
Yes.
Commissioner Bailey?
No.
Commissioner Berger?
No.
Commissioner Hunwick? Yes. Commissioner Knopf?
No.
Commissioner Young.
Yes.
It's split.
Yeah, split does not work. That resolution will fail. Or it's not adopted, my pardon.
I can't, Mr. Chair, I can't hear.
That resolution tied 3-3, so it will not get adopted. Let's move to item 11, communications and committee reports. The Economic Development Committee did not meet in May. I'm trying to get some things together for a June meeting. Things to follow up on are the updated PowerPoints to developers coming into Oxford, and then also ways to look through our ordinance system to make it easier to get through our building department's procedures and our ordinances. So that may be sometime in the middle of June, I suspect. Ordinance Review Committee.
I guess I can speak on behalf of that, Mr. Chair. We had a meeting again today. It's been a little while since we've had one. We're still working on the matrix of the actual scheduled section of uses in the zoning districts in the township, where we thought we would be completed today, but we had a potential other meeting we had to attend, so we're very, very close in finishing the matrix for all the zoning districts and the uses permitted. The uses permitted by special land use or through PUDs, etc. We should have it to you very soon, and possibly, I think, at the next available meeting date.
Okay.
Hopefully for recommendation to then go forward for approval. We still have other things in the works that we're working on right now. Mr. Curtis brought it to our attention today to try and move forward in those, and we are a little bit behind, but we're getting back up to speed. I think we're going to bring some things to you before summer's over.
Good.
Yep.
Carlisle Wortman.
All right. First, for those in the audience and for the applicant, is the understanding that the petition for Manitou Mills would come back as unfinished business at the next meeting?
Yes.
Okay. So for those of you interested in following it, it's going to be back here. All right, now to other planning stuff. This happens every year, but the state of Michigan, the folks in Lansing are again working on legislation that would preempt local units of government for managing short-term rentals and mineral extraction, also known as gravel pits or sand pits. Right now, those bills are still just in committee. They haven't gotten out to the general legislature side, so something to watch again. I do want to say, I know that the draft resolution was a bit much compared to what has been done in the past. In consultation with some other folks at the township and the township attorney, we felt it would be a time to try something like this. So I want to say I'm sorry if it was a bit much for folks. The reason why we've gone to this or why we considered doing this is it provides more background on what the decision was made on. Specifically references site plan dates and review letter dates, and specifically list conditions. In the past, we had done that by referencing review letters. This way, it's supposed to be kind of one document that we can hold up.
Correct.
So it is a bit of a learning curve. I try to make it as neutral so that the body can adjust it on the fly, and it can circle grants or does not grants, that type of thing. I think there are some spots where that can be improved. It's also designed to be easy for this body to amend at the meeting. So if you want to change something in paragraph 30, you just say, I want to change paragraph 30 to read this, or I want to insert paragraph 35 to read this, or strike condition B under paragraph 210 or add another condition. So it's meant to be kind of a flexible tool so that both this body, members of the public, and the applicant can see it ahead of time. If anyone has any recommendations to how to make it better, or if you just want to scrap it all together, let me know. Again, one of the reasons it came up is staff has been trying to track down what conditions the Planning Commission intended to put on site plans from many, many years ago.
Correct.
And I will say, for the members of the public, one of the things in the planning profession that we hold near and dear is trying to communicate information. As I mentioned, we're trying to get some more of these packets and other stuff out onto the township's website. If there are other ways that we can help facilitate that, please let us know. We are in the process right now of examining a lot of our processes to make it easier for staff, but also to make it more inclusive and better for the community as well. So please let us know. That's what I've got.
Thanks, Zach. Mr. Sharp?
I'm going to apologize to Mr. Knoll. He's going to have to bear through this as he did last night, but just a few updates as to some activities that are happening in the township. Road Commission for Oakland County is going to be coming through. They're going to be doing a mill and fill, you know, where they mill off a couple inches of asphalt and put some stuff, the new asphalt right down behind them. That's going to be occurring on Seymour Lake Road from the village limits down to Baldwin. Don't know the exact date, but it is coming this summer. What's that? Oh, the chief just tells me that they're supposed to be starting work on it tomorrow. I don't know what that means or how long it's going to take, but there you go. Good thing. Thanks, chief. Thanks for letting me know. The Manors of Westlake, if anybody's driven north of the Township Hall on Dunlap Road, you can see that project that you approved, which is 75 residential homes, is well under construction right now. They've got the sanitary sewer and water main in right now. So next is the storm sewer, and then they'll be doing some paving. They should have that wrapped up around middle of July, and then be coming through with some landscaping after that. So that project is well underway.
Do you want to mention the temporary concrete plant?
Why don't you go ahead and take care of that one, Zach?
Okay. Well, I just want to let folks know, as part of this project, they're putting in all concrete streets. And to help support that, they're going to be putting a temporary concrete plant on the site. We've worked with them so we know where the trucks are going to be going in. It's placed in an area to reduce impact on the houses to the north, so it's basically as far south from there. And we also worked to make sure that it wasn't an area where it might damage any of the underground infrastructure. So if you see it up there, we know it's there. And it'll actually be quite beneficial because instead of having a bunch of concrete trucks driving through there, they're going to bring the aggregate and just shuttle it around the site.
Tell them how long it'll be there.
Huh?
How long will it be there?
It's going to be there maximum 2 weeks and probably active 3 or 4 days, something like that.
And I never thought I'd see the day where developers were looking to put concrete in lieu of asphalt, you know?
Right.
Concrete's always been more expensive, but I guess it's just a crazy world out there right now. So yeah, they're going to be concrete roads there. The Enclaves, which is a duplex development there in front of the Abbey Ridge Apartments. We're going to be having a pre-construction meeting for that next week, so construction will probably begin in a couple weeks on that one. They've already done the grading activities there. We allowed them to begin with that while they were waiting on their water and sewer permits, but that is going to be moving forward as well. Culvers, we'll be putting down the first layers of asphalt on Monday. So line up for your Butter Burgers. It'll probably be around 4th of July or something when that will be open. And then with regards to the schools, just a couple things to make you aware of. I mean, they don't have to go through our process here, but there's a lot of activity happening at the high school, the middle school, Leonard Elementary. I think Daniel Axford is getting some, but they're resurfacing all of their parking lots, new curbs, things like that. There's going to be a lot of activity interior to the schools too, and that's all through their bond project. They also purchased the 13 acres south of the football field, and they are going to be doing some land balancing activities in there. So that's going to look a lot different. That's the parcel of land between the football field and the Thorn Lock. They're going to be taking down a lot of the trees. That was an old mined area, so there's areas where they're taking out 20 feet of dirt and filling 20 feet of, I mean, it's just like a canyons and so forth in there, so it's going to be pretty, but they don't have any development plans, just so you and the public are aware. There hasn't been anything submitted. They are simply taking down some trees and land balancing so they can kind of see what they do have when it's all said and done. With that, any other questions regarding development activities in the township? All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And with that, I am going to conclude this meeting at 8:49 p.m. Meeting's adjourned. Thanks for coming.